I joined a cult, and now I can't get out. I'm deeply regretful, and I don't know what to do now. I'm 22 years old, from Mexico, and I have no family, friends, or girlfriend. I'm writing this before jumping off the rooftop of my building. I'll try to share part of my story in the hope that if you're reading this and you're curious about these kinds of things, don't get involved. It was the worst mistake I could have made. I was only 17 when I started getting interested in black magic games to contact beings and unknown dimensions. First of all, yes, it's all real, so real that it left me here. I started by playing with a Ouija board. The house I lived in at the time had a history of at least 150 years, so it was easy for me to contact something. I won't say its name, but it told me it was a demon. After researching it, I found out it was true, at least if it was telling the truth about its name. Though it didn't really matter much, I had achieved my goal, contacting something more or less powerful. I managed to get it to tell me things about the future. I started with something very simple, like whether I would finish university, kinds of things. At the time, I was still living at my parents' house, so I also asked about them. Although I don't want to share all my questions. That's where it all began. After that, I started experiencing paranormal events. Things were thrown, doors slammed. I was scared. I felt like I had awakened something I shouldn't have, until I realized I hadn't closed the contact. I didn't say goodbye, just left and blew out the candles. That's a basic rule, and I completely ignored it. Once I realized, I tried to contact that demon again, but no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't respond. I ended up contacting what seemed like ghosts, but they would quickly leave once I closed the contact. So I started researching more, looking for a way to properly close that contact. I was scared, but I still had that curiosity about everything paranormal. One day, I found a Facebook page about sanitary letters. I was curious and decided to visit the shaman. I asked him if he could teach me, if I could be his apprentice. At first, he said no. He told me this world was very dark, and that once I entered, there would be no turning back. But I insisted, and in the end, he agreed. He gave me his contact information and told me to think it over. A few days later, I called him. I had already made up my mind. The paranormal events were getting worse, and my curiosity was stronger than my fear. Still, I made the effort to go. When I arrived, it was completely different from the shaman. It was a house in the forest, filled with candles and drawings I still didn't understand. I told him the shaman had sent me because I wanted to learn. Again, he warned me and asked me to show him what I knew. So I performed a few cleansing rituals, and when I tried to contact something, he stopped me. You don't know what you're doing. These things aren't for you yet. I apologized and asked why I couldn't continue. These things aren't for beginners, kid. You could awaken things you don't understand. I'd like you to explain. I thought it was just for yes or no questions. It's not worth explaining to you. And don't try anything again without someone who truly knows what they're doing. After that, not much happened. I felt like he didn't really want me, as a student. He was only doing it because I paid him, and barely at that. Frustrated by how little I was learning, I left and started looking for other options. Little by little, I got deeper into the world of Santeria, teaching myself. I didn't do rituals at home, but I could see the effects. I felt like something was following me. I started experiencing sleep paralysis. They seemed to ignore me, but I saw them walking round my room, my house. Sometimes they stopped to look at me. Shadows. Some had faces, others didn't. One got so close I could smell it, and when I woke up I could still feel it. When I couldn't take it anymore, when the things I was doing were consuming me, I was about to go back to the instructor I had abandoned. But before I could, I was contacted on Facebook by what seemed to be a sect. They told me they had been watching me, that they knew what was happening to me, and that they wanted to help. I said yes, and they told me to meet them at what looked like an unfinished house, far from where I lived, near a valley. As soon as I arrived, more than 7 or 8 people started coming out from different places, as if they had been hiding, waiting for me. Hello, Cristobal, and hello, can you help me? Of course we can, but first you must pay. What's the price? You didn't mention anything about payment before. A small price, really. It may help you more than it helps us. We want you to join us. We've seen what you do, and we're truly interested in you. Then more people began to approach, holding candles in their hands. Do you accept, Cristobal? I hesitated very little. I no longer wanted to feel like I was being watched. There were many things I no longer wanted. I accept. Then I only remember someone stabbing a knife, what looked like a rusty one, to my forearm. I screamed in pain and passed out, or at least I think I did, because I don't remember anything after that. I woke up in an old library where there were hardly any people. The wound had been treated, but it burned terribly. I didn't hear anything from the cult I had supposedly joined for a few weeks, although things slowly began to disappear. In the end, I no longer had sleep paralysis. Even the pain in my hands stopped, something I had had for a long time. I assumed they had done it, but I didn't know what the price they had mentioned was. One day, on my way home from university, someone stopped me and said, "Hi, Cristobal. I am Damien, part of the cult you joined. I've come for you, but I can't right now. I have things to do. It's not about whether you can. You're coming with me willingly or not." He showed me some needles. I got scared and followed him. We reached a forest and started walking deeper into it. It was getting later, but I didn't say anything, because if I tried to run, things would only get worse. I hoped that after going and doing whatever they wanted, they'd let me go again. After a long walk through the woods, we arrived at a small cabin with smoke coming out of it. It looked lit from the inside, but only by candles. When I entered, I saw they were black and red candles. Some were purple, but mostly black and red. Hello, Cristobal. I hope our prayers worked for you. Yes, I practically have no ailments left. Thank you so much. Don't worry. That's what we promised you. Now it's time for you to pay us. But you didn't explain what do I have to do. You're going to make a sacrifice. I felt myself go pale. I knew about that, of course, but I never wanted to go that far. I knew this wasn't for me. Then they brought out a small goat that looked like a baby and handed me a sharp, rusty dagger. I spent a while staring at the helpless goat until I looked away and saw the people around me. I said, "I'm sorry," in my mind, and plunged the dagger in. "Very good, Christabel. Now you have to stop the bleeding quickly, because if you lose it, you'll have to start over." They gave me a pot, and I started filling it with blood. When it was a little over halfway full, the body stopped bleeding. "Yes, that's enough." They placed the pot over a fire and told me to wait. They offered me food and water, but I felt like throwing up. "Christabel, step out for a moment. Stay on those rocks." I obeyed and went there. 5 minutes passed, and little by little they began bringing candles to where I was, without saying a word. I tried to ask what they were doing, but no one answered until, suddenly, without warning, they poured the pot full of black blood over me. Then they began speaking in a language I couldn't understand and made me drink something. At that moment, I knew there was no turning back. Terrified by the macabre scene, I went into shock. I could hear them talking to me, but I couldn't understand their words. My mind kept repeating that I was a murderer. I hadn't yet realized what had just happened, an initiation. Then I came back to my senses and understood. "Well, Christabel, once again, congratulations on finally joining our group officially. Soon we'll be sending more people like Damien when we need you. The food is still there if you want to eat before you leave." He patted me on the back, and I heard his footsteps. Not long after, I decided to leave. There was a person with blackened hands who told me to follow them. I did, and in half an hour we were back in the city. Then they let me walk, and I did so until I reached my house. When I arrived, everyone in my family was asleep. I showered, ate, and went to bed. However, I couldn't sleep. I could constantly remember the feeling of warm blood running down my body. They didn't call me for a few days. For a long time, I couldn't sleep. Everything inside me kept telling me I should leave now, that soon it would be too late. But I was increasingly tired and unmotivated, barely eating. Then they showed up. Again, they knocked on my door. That day, no one else was home, so I was the one who answered. "Bye." I recognized the blackened hands. It wasn't the same person, but they had that same feature. "Hello, Christabel. My name is Jose. Please follow me." I grabbed what I could and followed him. We took several forms of transportation. It took bus about 3 hours to get there. Once again, night was falling. I could imagine all sorts of things. I even thought I might die that day, which honestly didn't bother me much. It might have even been a relief. Then we arrived at an abandoned building, a structure. We went inside, and again there were about 6 to 9 people. The place filled with candles and the person I had been following. "Hello, Christabel. Glad you made it. Please join us. We're about to begin. Don't worry about what to do. Just follow us. They gave me a candle, which I held with both hands, and they began drawing strange symbols on the floor. It wasn't a pentagram or anything like that. It didn't look like what you usually see in movies or online videos. It was different, more terrifying, even though part of me was completely lost in the fire. I started mimicking their movements as if I'd done it all my life. I have a theory that I was in a trance, but I have no way to confirm it. I began to feel a strange vibe, like something was manifesting. Maybe we had summoned something. I don't know. Suddenly, I felt something breathing in my ear, like the voice inside my head had taken shape and was whispering to me, even though I couldn't understand it. It was clear enough to know it wasn't something good. I closed my eyes and began to pray. I didn't even realize when I stopped doing it in my head and started saying it out loud. But nothing stopped the noise. The firelight that disturbed me, nothing ceased, until I felt something burning my hands. They had dropped wax on my fingers. It hurt, even though I didn't scream. I opened my eyes, and they were all staring at me. I couldn't see their eyes in the darkness, but I could feel them. What are you doing? What were you praying? I don't remember. Well, you did. Nothing happened, but you almost ruined everything. Now extend your hand and keep it there until I say so. I obeyed, and then they all stood up and began dripping wax from their candles onto my index finger. By the fourth drop, it stopped burning and started to hurt. I winced in pain, and they poured wax on my back. I screamed, and they did it again till I stopped screaming, until they ran out of candles to burn me with. Then everyone returned to their previous places, and everything continued as if nothing had happened, including me. But I was no longer in a trance. I was just there, trying not to interrupt. When I looked at my hand, the one that had been burned with wax, my finger was black. Black like the people who had passed by me, just as black. But instead of the whole hand, it was only my index finger. I tried not to panic and turned my gaze back to the ritual they were performing. It ended later than I expected. I had no way to get back, nowhere to go. When I asked what I should do, they told me to come with them to their place. That's where everyone who had nowhere else to go stayed. I had to go. I didn't even know where I was. I followed a group of people, and we arrived at a run-down neighborhood, very deteriorated but inhabited. They assigned me a room and told me I could stay there again. I couldn't sleep. Strange noises could be heard, screams, sobbing, people crying for help. I wanted to do something, but I knew it would be useless, and blindly I would end up like those people crying for help. Then, in the darkness, the door to the room I was in opened. It was the person who had recruited me, the one who had poured the blood on me. "Are you awake, Christabel?" "Yes. The noise won't let me sleep. I'm sorry about that. We usually ignore it, but I understand that for someone new like you, it's hard. I wanted to ask, what happened when you started praying? What do you mean? Why did you do it? Were you afraid?" "I think so. I don't remember very well. All right, it's normal. Don't worry. I just wanted to let you know that every time something like that happens, the wax punishment will be repeated with whatever we have on hand. This time it was wax, but it won't always be. So try not to do that too often, okay? He left the room, leaving me alone. Again, I thought about what he said, and before I knew it, it was morning. I went out looking for someone who could take me home. I found Damien and asked him, "Hi, Damien. Do you know if there's someone who can take me home? Or if someone can give me money to get back by public transport? I couldn't go home yesterday, and well, it's already kind of late." "Of course, I can ask, but don't you want to have breakfast? We usually do it all together right after waking up. Not everyone's awake yet, so you could help me set the table or cook. What would you like to do?" "I don't know. I really need to go home." "Don't worry. Let me ask who can take you, and I'll let you know." "Thanks, Damien." I waited for over an hour until someone told me to come have breakfast. I tried to explain that I was waiting to leave, but they didn't listen and just led me to a sort of common room where everyone was eating. I hadn't eaten in several hours, so I stayed to eat. I started to think maybe they weren't bad people. In fact, the place they had given me was quite comfortable. After eating, I tried to find Damien to ask if I could leave, but I ran into the man who had entered my room the night before. "How was the food, Christabel?" "It was good. I needed it. But I told Damien if there was someone who could take me home. He said he'd ask. But then we started eating, and I didn't get the chance. Do you know if someone can take me?" "Oh, don't worry about that. Why don't you stay a few days? I remember you wanted to learn more about Santeria letters. We'd be happy to teach you everything we know. Don't worry about food or rent. Can live here as long as you're one of us. Everything's covered." I didn't remember any of that. After the shock with the goat, I had completely forgotten. Honestly, it sounded pretty good. But my parents, my school, maybe. But I need my things. I can't stay in these clothes forever. Oh, don't worry about that either. In the room where you stayed, we left some clothes for you. By the way, if you want a shower, it's to the left when you leave your room. Just ask if it's occupied. It's a shared bathroom. Everything's actually in your room. Phone chargers, soap, shampoo, and if you need anything, let me know. I went to the room where I had stayed, and it wasn't just a change of clothes. Was all my clothes. I don't know when they went to get them, or how, but everything was there. I got worried and filled with fear, but just like I had known. That being covered in blood meant I had entered something with no way out. Now I knew I couldn't leave. I stayed there for a few weeks. We had a routine, and there were many of us. The neighborhood was full of people who belonged to this. People who, like me, had made a mistake and entered a place they couldn't escape from. Still, I was learning how to do different rituals, love bindings, cleansings, all that kind of thing. I had a place to live, and I was no longer a stranger. I was starting to get used to it, even though some nights I still heard cries for help. Over time, I got used to it and started sleeping again. I hadn't been to any more rituals or anything like that. This went on for at least 6 months. I even started to feel at peace. I thought maybe my destiny was to have black fingers instead of a whole hand. I was still a student, still experimenting with sectarial letters. One day, they called me again. We went to an abandoned construction site. As soon as I arrived, I felt the same aura as before. I started sweating. They asked me to light a fire and protect those present. I did it. Then they told me to wait for the ritual to end. They placed someone in front of me, someone with black hands, neck, and arms. I felt sorry for her. Her name was Alma. They undressed her, and she began to speak in a language I didn't understand. Then she started screaming. She was in pain. She was asking for help. I had heard those screams before. I knew that helping would be useless and would only hurt me. Then she began to twist in a strange way. I stopped seeing her. I opened my eyes. I returned to the neighborhood, showered, and went to sleep. It was past midnight, and everything was quiet. I remember I even celebrated my birthday there without cake, without candles, without anything. The irregular events continued. Different students came to provide protection, but I was always called more than the others. I continued studying Santa A for about 2 years. One day, the leader approached me and asked if I could help recruit new members and assist with their initiation. I didn't want to, but I said yes. I thought it might be a way to gain more privileges or even a way out. I had always been genuinely interested in all of it, and the idea of more people being as curious as I was excited me. That's what I thought. My first recruitment was a girl named Luz, like me. She was starting to get interested in learning about this and had been playing with a Ouija board. Soon, we summoned her to a valley similar to the one where I had been summoned. That's when I saw what an initiation really was. They stabbed her in the arm, placed her in the middle of a circle of candles, and began speaking in that strange language. Then they poured candle wax on the wound and took her away. I didn't hear from her again until months later when I saw her in the neighborhood. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't respond. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were already black. She looked in terrible shape overall. But it was her hands that shocked me the most. Then I looked at my own hands. Only my middle finger looked normal. How long had it been since I'd looked at my hands? Why were they black? They hadn't burned me with wax in a long time. That's when I realized dye had been consumed. I was part of this. I wanted to escape. I tried to put on my clothes, but I had no money, barely. Knew where I was, and my hands were black. I couldn't do anything. When I left, I tried to memorize the direction to the city, what I could do. I spent another half-year thinking about what to do. I thought about giving up and staying there forever. But then I remembered the shaman woman, the one I had gone to when it all began. She was far away, but I just waited for the right moment. One day we went to do an initiation. and I knew we were near my old home because I recognized some places. That was the moment. I did everything as usual, but at the end, with the person unconscious, I offered to go with them to drop her off. At first, they refused, but after insisting, they let me go with them. We took her. There were only a few of us. I protected myself, and when we were leaving the person, I ran as fast as I could. I didn't know where I was going, but I made it look like I did. They chased me for over an hour, but eventually I entered an alley and lost them. Time was ticking. I didn't know how long it would take them to find me, so I started walking through the streets, hoping to get my bearings. I walked for several hours during the early morning, but I managed to recognize a place and tried to remember the way to the shaman woman. After more hours, I finally got there, though all through the night I felt like someone was following me. That feeling from so long ago, the one that led me into all of this, was back again. When I arrived, there was no one there. I had to wait, but eventually she appeared. Please, I got involved in things I shouldn't have. Help me. The shaman looked at my hands and immediately said, "No, son. I can't get involved with them." She gave me 200 pesos and closed the door. I had nothing. I slept on the street for a few days, but I knew that if I stayed out there, they'd find me quickly. So with the little money I had left, I tried to find a job. I worked as a waiter, a porter, and did different things. Nothing really worked out, but at least I could eat. Eventually, I got a job as a waiter and managed to rent a very cheap room. I had to make up several stories about my hands, but in the end, I managed to survive. Until a few months ago, the feeling of being watched never went away. But lately, I've seen them. I've seen people watching me from afar. I know they've found me. I'm afraid I'll end up like the first girl I saw when they took me to get the protection. I'm afraid of having the same bizarre death. I don't have money to leave. I have no way to hide, no way out. I live in a shared housing complex, but next to it there's a multi-story building connected to where I live, so I can go in and I did. It's midnight, time to sleep. If you see someone with black hands, lifeless looking, if someone like that wants to take you to initiate you, you won't have a way out. You won't have another part in this that I'm about to take. Find the right people and don't fall for it. I'm sure these people are in many parts of Mexico. Be careful with all of this, because it's a very dark world, and the only way out is death.